Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure to like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Now, tomorrow night, we have an election to cover out of the state of California. Gavin Newsom is facing a recall. If Gavin Newsom is successfully recalled in the election, if people vote to remove 50% plus one, then Gavin Newsom will be removed from office and replaced with another governor, probably Larry Elder, given the polling. However, also given the polling, Gavin Newsom seems to be surging at this very moment, mainly due to polarization in the race and a pouring of resources. And it's really dampering Republican hopes in the state. We're going to get to all of this. And by the way, tomorrow night, I will be live right as the polls are closing in California. So if you want to watch the returns, make sure to be here. But nevertheless, we're going to get into all of this. I wanted to analyze the early vote. I wanted to create some takeaways that we should be looking for tomorrow night as well, and analyzing what Republicans need if they even want to make this competitive given the early vote data. And I'll be giving my final prediction at the end of this video as well. But first, I have to tell you guys about my good friends over at My Patriot Supply. Friends, let's face it, the future of America is looking worse each and every day, especially with the hurricanes and lockdowns in our midst. So those who are observant have the feeling that something bad is going to happen soon. And if it does, you need to be prepared. Do you have enough food, water, and other essentials to get you through tough times? If not, check out My Patriot Supply. They're the nation's #1 preparedness company, and they've served millions of American families. Right now, you can save 25% off their popular 4-week emergency food kit, which will keep you well fed within 4 weeks worth of breakfast, lunch, dinner, drinks, and snacks, totaling over 2,000 calories a day. This food stays fresh for up to 25 years in proper storage, so it will be there whenever you need it. In fact, you might need it a lot sooner than that, so don't wait. Go to preparewithredeagle.com and claim your 4-week emergency food kit. You'll save 25% if you act right now. That's preparewithredeagle.com. Don't wait. Do it today, because you don't know what tomorrow holds. So here we go. The 2021 recall election that will be taking place tomorrow. So I think last time we did a video, the return percentage was like around 30%. That's up to 37%. That's going to increase probably up to 40% of all the ballots that they send out will have been returned. So obviously we have ways to go, and a lot of people will be showing up to vote in person tomorrow. Those people will be overwhelmingly voting for Newsom to be recalled. However, those who vote by mail will be voting for Remain. So do keep that in mind. Now, Democrats' share of the electorate has decreased recently as more ballots have been returned. They were at like 56 when I started covering the early vote. They're now down to 52. Republicans are up to 25. Independents are at 23. If you look at this by age, still a lot of the electorate is older. I believe the 18 to 34% share did go up recently, but a good chunk of the electorate, actually, when you add it all up, roughly around 65% of the electorate is above the age of 50 in California. And 70% of the electorate is white. That is actually roughly in line with the national electorate, even though California is a state where whites are not even the plurality anymore, I think. But Latino turnout so far is just 18%. Asian turnout is actually higher than one would originally expect. And black turnout, however, is just down there at 3%, which is really interesting because black voters typically are most likely to use the vote-by-mail system. At least they were in the 2020 election. So black turnout's low. Hispanic turnout fairly low as well, but Asian turnout seems to be relatively high, which that could be good for either Democrats or Republicans, depending on what groups are turning out. Obviously, the Vietnamese in Orange County are a lot different than the Chinese up in San Francisco. That's definitely a question that needs to be looked at. But nevertheless, Democrats hold a lead over Republicans in the ballot returns by roughly 2.3 million votes. right now. Now, independents, we don't know how they're breaking. It is more likely that independents who are voting by mail probably will vote for Newsom to remain, whereas independents who will show up on election day will probably vote to remove Newsom. So what we know here is that Remain probably leads so far by 2.5 million plus 2.5 to 3 million, which means that you're going to need a turnout of probably around 5 million votes on election day for Republicans to have this recall election go successfully for them. Now, I don't necessarily believe that that is going to happen. Obviously, there will be some returns that will likely be released throughout the day in terms of party ID, seeing where exactly the race stands. But from what we know now, it's very evident and clear that it is an uphill climb for Republicans. It always wasn't. I mean, this was a race where if you look at some of the polling that we had seen, I guess you would say even in July, late July, a lot of the polls, even the election mafia polls had it 50-50. There were a few polls, More Information Group and Survey USA, that actually had the remove option winning at, 50% or so. And a lot of the polls that we see recently, however, actually have it being a 20-point race or so, give or take a few percent. And obviously, polls have their flaws, I understand. California, the polls haven't really been too far off compared to a place like Wisconsin in recent years. So I'm not really willing to just dismiss all of the polling. However, they don't really capture the grassroots energy factor either, to the point where they can be used to predict an election, but they shouldn't only be used to predict an election. But I will say this: if Newsom is actually removed from office, this will be the largest polling error in a statewide general election in recent history, and I mean recent history. Obviously, the Bernie Sanders election in Michigan and Indiana had large polling errors in the primaries in 2016, but that was a primary. This is actually a statewide gubernatorial election, technically. So we'll really have to see what happens beyond that point. But you look at the polling, that's kind of the number one takeaway right now, because Republicans are trailing in the polls even more so than they were. And it's California, obviously. I don't expect the Republicans to come out victorious tomorrow. I don't. There was a time period where I said, okay, maybe there's like a 35% chance, but then we see Newsom and his allies spending $36 million in August. And then you have Larry Elder entering the race, polarizing it essentially because he's running a hard right campaign in California, which I'm not saying that we shouldn't, waver no matter what state that we're running in, but the strategy for actually winning probably not among the best in the state of California for at least Larry Elder. I like Larry Elder. I hope he wins. Don't believe he's going to. But he polarized the race. Donald Trump chiming in earlier today, that's going to polarize the race as well to a certain extent. That's going to embolden Democrats. And then you have the whole Texas stuff, and a lot of liberals are really amped up in California, San Francisco, about that. So they kind of are running ads about that, trying to scare people into thinking that would happen in California. But whether that's true or not is beside the point. The bottom line is that California does have more Democrats, more liberals than a place like Texas, for example, and thus higher turnout will likely help them. It is true that they lost ground in 2020, and I think they will continue to lose ground in California in the future, but I don't know if it's really going to be enough to make a difference. Even 10, 15 years down the line, I still expect it to be a state. Democrats are going to be winning by 20 points or so, and if you look and you mess around with the election shuffler map, which I did, we'll get to that in a second, it's pretty evidently clear why this is a state that Republicans are going to struggle in, outside of a few House races, obviously, but looking at the polls, it's pretty clear to see where this race is headed. And obviously, you have the mail-in system as well. That is another thing. The universal VBM system, where they mail every voter a ballot. And we can obviously look at that and see they're going to barrage people with their resources, which honestly, let them. We're trolling them. Let them spend their money. Let them spend their money. so they can win by 15 instead of 10 or whatever. Fine, that'll take resources away from them in 2022. We're trolling them. That's really what this is about. But nevertheless, what you see here is you see them mailing everybody a ballot, and if they're going to barrage people with text messages and literature, campaign literature, and Republicans don't do this to the rate that the Dems do. We need to play at their game, because if we're able to do that and get out the vote operation solid, we're not going to lose Wisconsin ever again. You're not going to lose Michigan, Pennsylvania. The upper Midwest will really be ours, because the groups that turn out the lowest in this country, typically on average, it's not even black voters. No, that's what the Democrats want you to believe, but it's not true. It's non-college educated white voters. There's not a lot of them in California, obviously, but if you look at Wisconsin, even Minnesota, a lot of them are apathetic. First of all, you got to give them something to vote for, obviously. The neocon rhinos are not going to cut it. And you also have to make sure they turn out to vote, get an effective get out the vote operation. So Democrats have this for this election. And then there were some reports in the California news even. These are not, crackpot theories or anything like that actually came out recently that said that there was some glitches going on in, I think it was Orange County, with some system that they had there. And even if that's an isolated incident, even if it is rare, it is a problem. It is a problem that does need to be solved. Otherwise, people will have less faith in our system. Ideally, we get rid of the VBM system that we have in any state. You make it on request only, and you encourage people to turn out not 3 or 4 weeks before the election, before you even know what's going on, but actually on election day, if they can make it, they should be voting in person. Other than that, they probably don't care enough and are just voting because they've been hit with harassment on their telephone by the DNC. So that's really where we're at right now, but I wanted to get to the takeaways and then the prediction. 5 takeaways really quickly here. What to watch for: the Hispanic vote definitely is something to watch for. If you look at the trend, what did we see in the 2020 election? You look at what we saw in Los Angeles. You look at what we saw in parts of San Diego on the precinct map, as well as some of the southeastern California, Imperial County. A lot of Hispanic vote there. And Hispanics, typically on average, not really cool with the mandates or the lockdowns. Even Hispanic Democrats, I think that's partially why many of them move right in 2020. I think that trend can accelerate. I think it can actually continue in parts of California. Are we going to see it at the rate we saw it in Texas? No, but I think that LA County is going to move right and continuously move right a couple of points, because I do expect the trend to continue a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be enough. But we'll watch the Hispanic vote, because that could tell us a lot about 2022 for sure. Another takeaway is what happens in the LA area, because typically you have a lot of legacy Republicans who were never Trumpers, but many of them did vote for people like Young Kim and Mike Garcia. Do they come home? Was Trump's problem in California, in that part of California, a personality issue? We'll see. If they outperform John Cox, that kind of tells us that Trump may have been the issue for them in that part of California, more so than the Republican Party as a whole. Number 3, if the margin's within 15, it's time to celebrate. That's good news, especially with all the resources the Dems are pumping in to this election that we're seeing here. We did a little bit of trolling. They're spending more than the Republicans, obviously. But that's really number 3. If the margin is within 15, it's good. Number 4, if the margin is not within like 22, that's bad. Clearly would show that the Republicans fully dropped the ball on the recall election. Number 5, again, with the whole system, watch how long that it will take to count the votes. Clearly, it shows you that we need a Florida system in every state, because California, if it's going to be taking weeks to count all the votes, even though we'll probably know the winner on election night, probably it's going to be Remain. Watch how long it takes to count the votes, because that's a big thing. So we'll see. If turnout on election day is really high and the turnout comes out big, maybe it's going to be closer than expected, but we'll see. But final prediction right here, I expect Republicans to flip some counties. I expect them to make up some ground in places like Orange County, San Bernardino, Riverside, San Diego. Not sure this county map is going to be entirely 100% accurate, but I expect the Democrats I expect the Remain option to prevail by around 16.7 points, something like this. Give or take a few. Obviously, this prediction may not be the most accurate. I'm hoping it's closer, but I'm being a realist here. It's clearly evident that Democrats are just so hyped up for this race because of all the resources that have been poured into it. And I expect, Fresno will flip. I think Hispanics will move right vastly in places like LA County and Imperial, mainly because of the mandates and such. But other than that, I don't really think Newsom is going to be recalled. I hate to say it, but it's true. It's California, guys. But I think it's an effective moral victory if it's close, and because of all the resources that we trolled them into pouring in. And like I said, there was a chance at one point. Look at some of these polls. I think there was a chance. I really do. But they made the election, instead of about Gavin Newsom, they made it Gavin Newsom versus Larry Elder or Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump. They got the narrative battle there, but we'll have to see what happens tomorrow night. I'll be live either way. We're going to have a good time. We're going to analyze this election. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Please like this video down below. Comment down below and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Red Eagle out.